Well, if you're the kind of person that believes in science, we will see by the end of this video if I should be doing this video at all. Because straight from the gym, I came home to do a live video, to touch base, to check in with my people. Because we've not done a live video like this for a little while, and people keep mentioning it en passant. I'm using that phrase regular. People keep mentioning that what's going on. We're not doing no more live videos. We still look forward to the show. So I thought, let's do a live video tonight. So I come home from the gym and I jump in. And as I jump in, Felicia Holder messaged me to remind me that today is Thursday and that Janice is on with Frontline. And there's so many PEP things going on all the time that it's hard to keep track of everything. So I plead ignorance to that. So I just wrapped that up and I said, okay, we come on at 9. And at 9 o'clock, this is where you can laugh. At 9 o'clock on the dot, I restarted, and I talked to you all for about 3 minutes before I realized that the privacy on the video was set to only me. There's a setting you could post your post. You could set the setting to your posts to only you for maximum privacy. Nobody else can read it. And that means for about 3 minutes, I was literally talking to myself. Share the video. We don't need no more. No. Tell them wicked people. Inside one time, press that button. Here's the boss, here's the controller. Listen. Right, so let's start at the beginning, which is always one of the best places to start. I really did need a little break. I can't lie. I was doing a live video every day. I was doing 2 radio interviews every week. I was operating and building a political party from scratch. I was planning and executing a weekly meeting that went 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours every Saturday. I was coordinating public rallies throughout the country, organizing fundraisers. I was literally, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, writing policy, debating, anything. And I was literally turning my blood to water. I was burning myself out, building this party. And then the election came up and we weren't ready for that. So because there was no structure in place to handle that, I had to push myself in that campaign, manage that as well. And we got through and we had everything done. So the truth of the matter is, I took a break and I am back. And when I say I am back, to chat with you for a while, and I want you to feel free to raise your own issues here with me tonight. Feel free to ask questions. I want to come at it from the point where, now that I have gotten myself rested, I feel a lot more able to speak my mind. And if it have people in point willing to vote for you, there's a lovely comment, Jesus, Sun, Neptune. Good evening, everyone. If I don't say it enough, I love and appreciate all of you that follow me and support the PEP. Anyway, today I had to explain to a chap who doesn't understand. And until we get Trinidad to understand this, we ain't going nowhere. Until we get Trinidad to understand that the purpose of government, let me tell you this. Everybody who have a car, there's a very good chance in the back of your car, there's a jack. It's not just there to take up space. The jack's purpose is to jack up the car. Together with the jack, there's something called a wheel spanner. Again, not just there for giggles. The wheel spanner is to take off the nuts on the wheel. The jack and the wheel spanner together, their job is if you have a flat, to help you change the flat. That's a purpose. And I'm using the jack and the wheel spanner to make a point that Ryan Chinsang are going to answer your question in a minute. It has a purpose. The most important things, there's a saying, when the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to treat every problem as a nail, because a hammer is made for putting in or taking out nails. That's the purpose of a hammer. Yeah? I think my battery died in my remote. So I'm trying to explain to this guy today that the purpose for government, because you have to understand, there is only one reason for government. And if this was school, I would ask, if you think you know what it is, raise your hand. There's only one reason for government. One. To take care of and safeguard the people of the country, to seek the people's interests, to deal with the issues that the people deem important. Good evening, Kenrick Mohammed from San Fernando East. Jean-Claude Escalante, nuts on the wheel, no homo, exactly. Understanding that the well-being of the citizens is the function, reason, and purpose for government. Understanding that point. The word well-being, take it out and put any other word that you could think of. The education of the people is the function, purpose, and reason for government. The safety and security of the people is the function, reason, and purpose for government. The smooth flow of traffic, the maintenance of the roads, the pavements, the sidewalks, the drains, the rivers, the community centers, the street lighting is the function, reason, and purpose for government. The mental health of the nation is the function, reason, purpose of government. Making sure there are adequate jobs for all of the people and proper jobs so people are not working like slaves. This is actually in our constitution, is the function, reason, purpose of government. Public health is the reason, function, purpose of government. The cost of food, function, reason, purpose of government. The ability to conduct business in a free market, free from malice and advantage, is the function, reason, and purpose of government. Everything that you could think of to keep the drains clean from the trash that cause flooding is the function, reason, and purpose of government. To provide bins so that people could put their trash in it rather than just throw it on the side of the road is the function, reason, and purpose of government. To hire and deploy litter wardens so that the people who do not use the bins and throw their plastic bottle on the side of the road can be charged is the function, reason, and purpose of government. To apply something like a redemption tax on all plastic bottles at the import or manufacture stage so that we could have the roads and drains cleaned of plastics redeemed by people unemployable for money. That plastics that we could use for and recycle and repurpose them for construction and road building is the function, reason, and purpose for government. All of that together is the well-being of the people. The well-being of the people sitting in the waiting room in casualty is the function, reason, and purpose of government. The bed that Granny lying on in the Port of Spain hospital is the function, reason, and purpose of government. I want you to understand this. There is nothing, the condition of the country, the way people relate to each other, the laws that govern our interaction with each other, how we operate Trinidad and Tobago, all of that is the function, reason, and purpose for government. Hear how it is done. 1.4 million of us magically appeared on this island, La Trinity. $1.4 million of us. You're distracting me with the million messages. 1.4 million of us magically appear on La Trinity. And we decide in a big argument, because when 1.4 million people trying to decide where will be roads, where will be drains, where will be housing, where will be factories, what will be a commercial zone, how we will decide what is industrial from residential, what will be, how will we govern credit, will we have banks, how will those banks operate, who will regulate, who will oversee. 1.4 million of us arguing about all of those things got loud. It got rowdy. It became anarchy. It didn't make sense. So somebody came up with a bright idea. Let us organize ourselves into communities that we live in this country. Let's pick an arbitrary number like 41. Let's divide 1.4 million of us by 41 and mark those as boundaries and call those constituencies. Let's agree on that. So now instead of 1.4 million of us having a conversation, we all in our constituencies could decide what is important for us nationally as well as locally. That means to the people of Toko Manzanilla, there are issues that are different to the people of Diego Martin West, which are different to the people of Couva North, which are different to the people of Tobago East. All of those people together in their constituencies decide what's important to them locally as well as nationally, because even though we're in Toko Manzanilla or we're in St. Joseph or Tunapuna or Caroni Central, we still have concerns over the death penalty, how laws are enforced, who is our final appeal court, is it Caribbean Court, Privy Council. We have concerns about child marriage, decriminalization of marijuana, abortion, all of these things. So we have national concerns, who's running the economy, what we're doing as a diversification, all those things. We're concerned about those things, but we're concerned about our local area too. So each one of those 41 constituencies send a guy to stand up in, let's pick a park, let's say Woodford Square. All 41 of them are standing up in Woodford Square, and each of them writes on their shirt, not their name, on a name tag, Toko Manzanilla, San Fernando East, Tobago West, Diego Martin North, Port of Spain North, St. Anne's. All of them write the name of their constituency. 41 of them are in Woodford Square, and they're having conversations about the constituencies and the country, so that we're all talking like crime. How we dealing with crime? What's our plans for crime? Let's create a Trinidad and Tobago constabulary. No, let's call it a police service. And we'll establish a Trinidad and Tobago, and they say, you know what, let's write all of this down. We'll call this the governing rules of Trinidad and Tobago. We'll call it the operating handbook. Let's call it something sounding impressive. Let's call it the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Everybody agreed. So standing in Woodford Square, they all started to get tired and rain started to fall. And they decided, let's move this indoors so we could sit down and we could chat better. So they chose a place to sit indoors and they said, let's give this room that we're in a name. Let's call it Parliament. That when we're together, we're in Parliament. That's when the 41 of us come into this room, we are in Parliament. They all agree and they signed off on that. But then the 41 of them, the conversation still was a little bit rowdy and they said, no, we should appoint from among us somebody to chair these proceedings and establish rules so that we don't throw teacups at each other and tantrums from the back. And they said, okay, let's get somebody and put them to sit in front of all of us and will give us each a time to speak, and we will come to an agreement of the operation of the country to the best interest of the constituencies that we represent and the people of them by extension. We will call that person the Speaker of the House. So the Speaker's job is to keep order and we will agree on rules because we're the Parliament. Everything that happens in the Parliament, it doesn't come from Mars, it doesn't come from Venus, it doesn't come from Saturn or beyond the Milky Way. It comes from them, us. 41 of us in this room are the absolute authority for the country. We write the operating manual, we write the rules, we write the laws, we write the way the country is operated. That's all of the rules and all of the laws. The Constitution of the Republic speaks things into reality. Let there be a police service. Let there be a financial services regulator. Let there be a police service commission, a teaching service commission. Let there be a public service to address the needs of the people. All of these things, the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago pays lip service to, and out of all of them, laws have been written. Like how to appoint members of Parliament, because all 41 of us are here. But what happens if some of us want to leave? How do we determine when we change the 41 of us? Because it can't be all of us, or it can't be 41 of us for life. So let's say 5 years. All right, so 5 years up, what happens? Well, inside of each of your constituencies, choose an ex-man or woman to come here to the 41. Let's call that elections. And at election time, you will send somebody here. And I'm just trying to give you a quick capsule of how Parliament works. Once elected, and 41 of them sit in the House, because according to the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, parties don't exist, you know. The whole concept of PNM-UNC, hear this, this will shock you. The whole concept of political parties is an aberration to the Constitution. It presupposes, it hijacks the function of the Speaker, and it should be considered a contemptuous act. It should be political parties are an abomination to the House. The House of Representatives, the Parliament that houses all 41 representatives, that's how you come up with the name House of Representatives, that place only recognizes the constituency from which each person comes. Each seat, La Hoqueta Talparo, has a seat in the House. That's why they call it seats. Winning a seat. It is literally winning a seat named La Hoqueta Talparo in the House of Representatives that makes up the Parliament. So when they say a seat, it is literally the seat that you see them sitting on. That's what you're fighting for in elections. So when they say not a damn seat for them, that's what they mean. Those seats. According to the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, this is what is agreed. This could change in the Parliament. 41 of them could agree on just about anything. On just about anything, because they are the absolute law. They are the supreme policy-making body. We've put them there and said, in our name, operate this country. If you do things contrary to what we want, we're supposed to fire you and replace you. That's another conversation. And it is why the Progressive Empowerment Party advocates strongly that our first act as government, our very first act, before we open an office, before we touch a bread or a biscuit, we write into law. We convene the Parliament immediately and write into law recall. After the first 100 days, that is the first 100 days. In America, it's called the honeymoon. The media refer to it as a honeymoon, but it's actually a legal amount of time that you have taken responsibility for this room. You've campaigned on a lot of promises, and you assumed, based on information in the public space, that you have an idea of what's going on in the country and in your constituency. 100 days from the election that you get in there, you are supposed to be able to become a Kara. You're supposed to be able to understand everything that's going on and dovetail into that all of the promises that you made. So from 101 day, if you campaigned on crime and you campaigned on lower food prices, on your 101st day, the first thing people are supposed to hear come out your mouth is crime management policies, food reduction policies. Because that's what you campaigned on. And you need to be able to say, based on the realities that we found when we came into here, this is what exists. So we can do this. What do you think? And take it back to the people. Because it is the people you're representing, representation of the people. In fact, it is called the Representation of the People Act that governs all of that. And the Progressive Empowerment Party says that you cannot elect somebody to public office and not be able to remove them. That is an affront to natural justice. The people are not protected. They are not represented. The democracy is hijacked 1 minute after the election results are read. Because for 5 years, and if you're the UNC, a further 3 months, you can hold power and hold it away from the people. You don't have to do anything. Look at the PNM. The PNM doing jack with the time, and they don't care because there's nothing you could do. But let's come back to the issue of political parties, because I want you to understand how we're wrong from the start. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have political parties because we've organized ourselves in political parties, and this is the rules. This is par for the course. This is what goes on now. But according to the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, there's no such thing. To the point where if you go to the Ministry of Legal Affairs tomorrow to register a political party, they will tell you no, you cannot. No such animal exists in law in Trinidad and Tobago. There is no legislation that governs the operations of political parties. There is no registration document that you could fill out to say that you are registering a political party, because the Constitution does not recognize political parties. So every political party has to create an end run, break the law, bend the rules. From the very beginning, our lawmakers are breaking the rules by forming political parties. And we in the PEP telling you this because we have to reconcile this. At some point, let me tell you, undo and redo. These are conversations we have to have as a nation. We cannot continue to operate by throwing things against the wall and calling whatever we hit the target. The country needs to decide. If it wants to recognize political parties, write that into the Constitution. If it doesn't, outlaw it. Because when you have an election and 41 people are voted into office, what happens next is the 41 of them gather in a room, Parliament, and decide. This is how it is supposed to happen, according to the Constitution. That in that room, somebody is going to command the greatest amount of support from everybody else. They've never envisioned a situation where all 41 say, no, I only supporting me. Because then, I don't know what would be the tiebreaker there, because you would have 41 firsts. In a parliament, there is no prime minister. There is no opposition leader. There are 41 equals. All of them. Shamfa, Kamala, Colm, Maxi, Rudal, David Lee. All of them are equal in the eyes of the Constitution. After an election, the Parliament wants to organize itself. So it says, the person who commands the support of the most members of the 41, you are given the title Prime Minister. And you are asked to form a government. And to form a government, you need a cabinet. And a cabinet is basically you and somebody who understands how to write rules and law. Has to be an attorney. He is called the Attorney General. The Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago calls for 2 ministers in cabinet, in government. In fact, forget the word cabinet for now. Government, to form a government, only requires the Prime Minister and his or her Attorney General. According to the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister is the minister of everything. Everything. Prime Minister is responsible for everything. There are no limits. Everything that is the operation of the country is the responsibility of the Prime Minister. The Attorney General is the custodian of the nation's law, the steward of the nation's law, and the author of the nation's laws. That's the role of the Attorney General. The Prime Minister's job is to take care of everything else. The economy, healthcare, education, flooding, traffic, roads, lights, who operating, internet, anything you could think of that is a management, a tax, a law, a fine, a rule, Prime Minister's job. And the Prime Minister also sets the legislative agenda in consultation with the Attorney General. Of course, there is also an opposition. Now, the rules of the opposition is vague. They are very vague. Because nobody understands, according to Westminster, that we've copied and pasted into Trinidad, what is the real role of the opposition? Most people accept and believe that the opposition's job is to create itself into a shadow government. So if you as the Prime Minister create a Minister of Education, the opposition leader should immediately appoint a shadow Minister of Education. And the Prime Minister appoints a Minister of Health, the opposition leader should appoint a shadow Minister of Health. The Prime Minister appoints an attorney, well, there's an Attorney General, there should be a shadow Attorney General. There's a Minister of Finance, there's a shadow Minister of Finance. And what that means is, at times of debate, you are expecting that the Minister of Finance, who's the Prime Minister is the Minister of Finance, but he could share that authority, that responsibility by appointing somebody else. The Constitution, I don't think there is a limit. I have never seen a limit to the amount of ministers you could hire, and you're limited by, I guess, who could pass through the Senate doors. But once there is an issue to be addressed, and say the Minister of Education stands up to speak in Parliament about education, the opposition's response should be the shadow Minister of Education, not the opposition leader. It should be the shadow Minister of Education. The opposition must be so organized as to offer itself to the public as an instant alternative to government. That should be the role of an opposition, not just to oppose. In many cases, the opposition's job is to check and balance, because there are 2/3, 3/5 special majority that you need to interfere with things like the Constitution. But we've had situations like in 1986, where the NAR won beyond a special majority. Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson could have scrapped the Constitution and written it over, and he had the authority to do that. But you have now a government out of the Parliament. So you have the Parliament, and the Parliament's job is to debate, is to represent the people. And we discussed that earlier. All 41 of us, we're here Sama Barataria want to talk about mosquitoes. Couva South want to talk Pradia larceny. Diego Martin West want to talk flooding. Everybody have their issues in the parliament that the government has to solve. The government is the operational team. The parliament brings the information to the parliament. The representatives, the members of parliament bring the information to the house. And the government is supposed to take care of all of those issues. The government is the management team. That's the role of the government, to operate the country. To operate the country seamlessly. And if they can't do the job, you fire them and you replace them with somebody else. In this country, we've been, I don't want to use the word fooled, but that's what's taken place. We don't even understand what the government is for. So we think there is a place. You know how we do Miss World and Miss Universe? We do parliament and government like Miss World and Miss Universe. Who are one boy? Who looking good? We are one step away from having a swimsuit category. And you could imagine Maxi Coffey and Fitzgerald Hines and Rudal Muriel walking down the ramp in bikinis. And I want you to take this, as ridiculous as that sounds, because that's how we vote. We don't know anybody's policies. We don't know what they want to do. We don't know what they know. We don't know their capacities. We don't know their capabilities. We don't know what they're for. We don't know what they're against. We find out after we elect them. And after we elect them, they're doing what the hell they want, knowing that there are no safeguards, that you can't fire them, that there is nothing in place. There is nothing. If ever Trinidadians wanted to take their democracy seriously and tell me, 20,000 of us need to be outside the parliament tomorrow. And we will stand there until you write a law that gives us the power to remove non-performing members of parliament from our House of Representatives, or we're not moving. This is our country. We will stand up here until everybody joins us, until the economy is shut right down, until you have no choice but to call an election, and we will fire you and replace you with somebody who will write that law. Because I want you to understand this clear as a bell. Forget the swimsuit category and who skin blacker and who skin browner and who hair tata and who hair nice and coconut oily. Forget all that bullshit. All that you are supposed to care about when you are hiring a government, when you are hiring a member of parliament, is capacity, capability, knowledge, plans, programs, ideas. You must judge them by their track record. Did you just appear here overnight? What have you been doing with your life? What does your resume look like? If you are hiring somebody to make coffee for you, they go through a more rigorous interview than we do with the people who have the most say and control over our lives. How mad are we? We have no idea what Keith Rowley is capable of. We're told a lot of nonsense. Campaign time, there are financiers who drown the campaign with money and tell us so much bullshit. We know what Kamala do wrong. We went an entire election thinking Kamala was screwing some little boy across the street while smoking weed in her yard, and Keith Rowley was raping everything in sight. We went to an entire election and they had Jack, a big old thief. That was the narrative of our entire 2015 election. Think about that. Think about this country's future. $300 billion spent in 5 years, $300 billion being spent now. $300,000 million is being spent by people that we've given authority to spend it without having a clue what they were going to do with it. We have no idea. There are issues in this country that are paid lip service by the people. We talk and talk and talk. We make jokes, we make memes, we argue, we go to the road, we talk it out, we laugh it out, we shout it out. We hear public office holders saying it, but nobody's talking about how we fix it. There are things in this country that are so badly broken that the only way to fix it, and the entire justice system needs to be undone and redone. The Director of Public Prosecutions needs to be made to account to the people. We need to know what matters he or she is dealing with and where they're at in the prosecutorial stage. Because things have happened in this country and referred to the DPP, and that's the last we've heard of it. Now, I'm not saying anything else other than we do not appear to have systems in place that govern how we operate this country. The Progressive Empowerment Party strenuously advocates this. Our justice system, our courts must get a clock. For civil matters, you are allowed no more than 3 years. For criminal matters, you are allowed no more than 5. The person being judged by this clock is the judge or the magistrate handling the matter. Because if the judge cannot bring a matter in under 5 years, a criminal matter, at the end of the law term, the judges with the most errant record have to be removed from the bench unless extenuating circumstances occurred that forced it to be so. But judges that fail routinely to bring civil matters to judgment in 3 years and criminal matters in 5. You see, this is why the court is clogged up. The court is clogged up because there is no end time for a case. So a case enters the system and joins the queue to nowhere. To know when. But if a judge is dealing with a matter, and I use this as an example, and the matter is called before the judge, and the judge and an attorney stands up, because attorneys are guilty of this. Attorneys use opportunities to put off matters over and over to get appearance fees like Machel. Multiple fets a night. Multiple appearances for one case. Because if it's $3,000 to stand up before the judge, and I stand up before the judge 10 times, even if I could have resolved the matter in one stand, but I stand and get $30,000, I'm rich. And it is madness. Now, if the judge is being governed by a clock, when an attorney stands up and asks for an adjournment of the matter, the judge has to ask him, what is this adjournment for? In most cases, you hear things like, Your Honor, the police prosecutor is not present, or a witness is missing. And in a real country and under this system, the judge would do 2 things. Because he would ask his clerk, how much time running on this case? Because they have discovery and all the little exchanges. And the clerk would say, Your Honor, we've been at this case for 2 years and 6 months. And the judge could estimate that they have a next couple of years still to deal with this matter. And that could be a problem. So the judge will say, okay, here, 2 years, 6 months, we're already beyond time. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to stop the clock. We're going to stand up. I am issuing a bench warrant for your police officer. I am issuing a bench warrant for your witness. Call the police officer in charge. Hand him the bench warrant. Go and bring Sergeant so-and-so to this court. Your Honor, he's on vacation in Barbuda. Well, hurry up, because we're waiting. And all of a sudden, the thing will start to make sense. Now, somebody told me about judges and tenure and jobs for life. Trinidad can't be jobs for life. Nobody should have a job for life in Trinidad and Tobago. Nobody. I don't care who you are or what you think. You should be employed based on your qualifications and your ability to deliver, monitored by your track record. That's it. If we hire you based on qualifications and your resume, but you fail to deliver, you have to be fired. We can't keep people in office on potential. We have to keep you in office on deliverables. Public office in Trinidad and Tobago has been turned upside down and made a mockery. So let's start with the justice system. We have to literally undo it and redo it. Now this system we're talking about, we want to bring gun court, drug court, night court. We want to bring petty crimes court and civil court, where 2 people suing each other. It's like Judge Judy, seriously. Bring the two of them in front of them. Any matter under, say, $100,000. Bring the two of them in front of a judge, argue your case. And we need to cut off, because we have cases backlogged 400 years. So we have to divide the judiciary in two. All of these judges, if we have 50 judges, these 25, all you're handling the docket for everything from today go back is called a cold case. You all work through that till all you're done, and if you're ever done, come and join us here. And everything else now is the justice system, current cases going forward with a clock. So as somebody is charged or a lawsuit begins, from the moment it reaches in front of the judge, a clock starts ticking. And everybody knows that there is a time frame within which this matter must be concluded, or the matter gets tossed. So it could be a murder trial. It is now 5 years and 1 day over. The entire matter gets tossed. The accused walk free. And that now becomes the responsibility of the Chief Justice, because the Chief Justice needs to be monitoring all of the cases in his court and all of the matters that are going on, because the Chief Justice has to be responsible for all of his judges. And in matters that are big murder cases and big drug cases and big political corruption cases, the Chief Justice should find himself present or send his representative to sit in the matter and report to him that says, sir, madam, this case, they're running out the clock. So that the Chief Justice could intervene. In this country, there is a law that the DPP, believe this or not, could walk into any courtroom in any case and vacate the matter without asking boo to anybody. That's the law. I'll come back to this. If we're going to fix Trinidad and Tobago, we have to put systems in place that make sense. We can't continue to say the police service corrupt. They have rogue elements. You can't trust the police. And police don't come. Police have no car. Police does lie. Police does break red light. Police does take police car to drop the children to school. All that bullshit could fix. Why do we settle for talk? Why do we settle for rah-rah? Why don't we say, okay, let's solve each of those problems? Because none of them are insoluble, unsolvable. None of them require rocket science. It's management. The police service is corrupt. Put an anti-corruption unit inside the police service, rewarded for bringing corrupt officers to justice. Give them bonuses on that. Make sure that you hire them from people outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Israel, France, Portugal, Canada, Palestine, you name Africa, you name it, China. Make up an internal affairs team whose work it is to prosecute corrupt police officers. I know people who are in the New York City Police Department Internal Affairs Unit. They tell me police officers in America don't afraid terrorists. Them don't afraid gangster. Them don't afraid mafia. They afraid internal affairs. In the United States of America, a police officer pulls out his gun in the execution of his duty and shoots a man dead. He immediately turns over his gun to ballistics, and the matter is investigated by the police service internal affairs unit. And they investigate to see if it was a good kill. That is actually the term, a good kill. Because if there was justification for the shooting, the police department stands behind the officer. And if there was none, he gets charged for manslaughter or murder, depraved indifference for human life. We need a law like that in Trinidad and Tobago. If there was a law like depraved indifference for human life in Trinidad and Tobago, whoever was operating the Port of Spain General Hospital the night Christopher Philip died on the hospital grounds would have been charged. It is your hospital. This is a life and death facility. This is not Miss World, Miss Universe. This is a place where people come when they are running out of life. And you need to make sure that you have a serious respect for human life, the sanctity of human life. I have told people, and again, I keep using New York City. I have done my research. From the time somebody calls an ambulance, the operator on the phone is responsible lawfully and legally for that person's life. The operator on the phone want one thing done, to get all of the information properly organized and get an ambulance there to take that person. Because once the paramedics reach, the operator off the hook. The person's life is now the responsibility of the paramedics. So it's when the operator, when they're talking to somebody, you call and say, emergency, what is the emergency? They're asking you questions. While they're asking you questions, everybody run into their ambulance, they run into their bus, and they have all their medicines sorted out in bags. They could dismemberment, gunshot, snake bite, whatever, heart attack, stroke. They know which bag to grab. That all have, the bus have the basics, but these bags have specialty items for this matter you call for. And they're coming to you because the paramedics' job is to stabilize and transport. That is their job. And they want to get you stabilized and transported as quickly as possible to the emergency room to hand you over. There is an actual clipboard and there is a form that is signed over. I have passed on liability of this person to the emergency room. Now the emergency room has liability, responsibility for you, for the patient. The operator had, the paramedics had, now the emergency room have. And the emergency room's job is to continue the stabilization, identify where you are. We getting you out of one of two doors. We're sending you back out safe and good, organized, go back out into society, or we're handing you over to the hospital again. Another handover. You're no longer in ER. You're admitted to the hospital. And that's something else again. And that is the attending physician. You ever heard that term, the attending physician? His responsibility now is that patient. You don't get a license, a medical license in the United States of America just like that. When you get a medical license, you understand, because if at any point of that food chain, that patient dies, you could do your research. There is a morbidity conference in the hospital. It could go beyond the hospital, but they trust that the hospital will do it, to identify if this person died needlessly. At what point did the operator fail to get the information? Did the paramedics take too long? Did the paramedics fail in the execution? Did the ER fail? What went wrong? Because life is treated as sacred regardless of who you are. You could be a homeless crack whore. Literally the bottom of the rung of society. A homeless crack whore. But from the moment you enter that system, regardless of their personal opinion of you, they know that there is oversight on their actions and what they do. So they don't pay their ass. That's how our country is run. In New York City, if you are motoring a boat up to New York City, there is a line in the water that if you cross it, they contact you. The Coast Guard contacts you to find out where you're going and what's your business. And if you ignore them, there is another line that if you cross that, you are intercepted. There are two boats and a helicopter generally that beats you. The first boat job is to ram you, stop you, board you. Because you are coming to New York City by boat and not responding to them, and they're going to stop you in the water. The second boat job is if he failed to ram, to stop you, to sink you. Believe that? Because they understand how to secure their borders. You can't just drive up New York City with a cooler full of cocaine and pretend all it was DDI, but I ain't going down that road. I'm just telling you. I have seen video, not training video, you know, actual factual video, where the first boat slams straight into the other boat, stop him dead in the water, and they just throw grappling hooks and pull him in and board. Machine guns, because you're not getting past here. We do not understand how to secure our own borders. Our police service, internal affairs, would clean up our police service in 6 months. The rottenness in the police service would collapse after the first 2-3 senior officers get taken out and charged, suspended from duty and charged for their crimes. From the moment that happens, the entire construct of criminality will collapse. John ain't talking to Harry, and Harry ain't talking to William, because nobody want the name called. But we're not doing that in Trinidad and Tobago. Because in Trinidad and Tobago, this country is not set up to operate like a real nation. It's set up to fail. It is why the banks could organize themselves into a bankers association, who I call the banksters. Because they've organized themselves into an association where they decided that the people of Trinidad and Tobago have no protection. There is nobody in this country that safeguards the well-being of the people's interests in the bank. So the bank looked at their rules of operating. And this is how the banks operate. This is terms of reference of a bank. A bank takes in money, pays you interest on your money, and lends out that money for higher interest to make money, to pay you your interest, and to make a profit. And for years, the banks were making billions of dollars doing that. But for some reason along the way, somebody told the banks that, you know what? Let's don't pay the people no interest, and all banks stopped paying the people interest. At one time, all the banks stopped. And I don't know who gave them that authority. All of a sudden, you as a depositor had no money interest to get on your money. And they got away with it. The people didn't riot. The people didn't pull out their money and shut down the banks. The people took it. The moment the banks removed having to pay you interest, their entire cost of business column collapsed. They didn't have a big chunk of their cost of doing business. It's like if tomorrow, all of a sudden, all the Subway sandwich makers working for Prestige Holdings came to work for free. They came to work for free. And the rent for the sandwich shop is free. All of a sudden, you have no expenses. That's what they lost. And the moment that came out, then the banks obviously struck out risk. They no longer had to lend you money, because not to take risk. They replaced that with a new thing called fees. And every day, new fees came out. And the people took the 1-2 punch of no interest and no credit. And they took it without reacting, without revolting. In Haiti, the people rioted. The government tried to raise the price of gas, and the price of gas came back down. And it is not that you're advocating anarchy. You are saying that the operation of the country is the people's decision. The people decide it. The government functions to the will of the people. In Trinidad and Tobago, it's the other way around. The people live like slaves. We live on edicts from on high. Other people make the decisions, and we are told this is how life will be, and we take that bullshit. Trinidad and Tobago is still a massive foreign exchange earner, yet for some inexplicable reason, only certain people can get foreign exchange, and we're not. It's like our banking system from the central bank down has been privatized, and nobody's told us. Nobody's told us. So the banks are now warehousing your money and charging you fees to hold it. That is an insanity. And a progressive empowerment party government will open the market immediately, before we do a single thing, and invite 10 foreign banks, international banks, to come and set up in Trinidad and Tobago. Because the moment competition arrives, you ever see how when a man notices a next man smiling at his girlfriend and she's smiling back? If that man has some money, the fella start to work hard. If that man have a nice body, the fella start to run around the savannah and join the gym. That's how it works. From the moment competition arrives, the banks that had your business before, I will never forget Smokey and Bunty in St. James. Smokey kept every chipped Carib, because when Carib bought out Stag, Carib moved like dictators. And before, when you buy a case of beer, if you get a chipped beer in the bottle, you just have to hold it, and when they come back, they'll take it back. And Carib say, all that done. Carib stop taking returns and all kind of shit. They could have done what you want. You had two choices. Buy Carib or don't buy Carib. And that's what they did. Smokey kept almost a warehouse of chipped bottles. And the day Miller Bear came to Trinidad, Smokey organized Miller Fridays, if you remember, at Smokey and Bunty. And used to sell Miller Bear 2 for 1 and all kind of thing. And was making inroads for Miller. And Carib sent their supervisor to Smokey and Bunty. What's going on, bro? We tight, we together for years. And Smokey took them into his warehouse. exchange all of that. Think Carib had a choice? Competition. Competition works for the people. Now that Sabga was allowed to buy up Trinidad Aggregate Products and merge it with his ABEL, the price of clay blocks is going to go up. It is going to go up. They'll come up with some reason, but it's going to go up because competition keeps the price down. Competition makes service happen. But we don't live in a country where the people are protected. Nobody safeguards the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So the banks know that the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago could do everything they want. And the people have one choice, put themselves at risk, taking money out the bank. And if enough people do that, the bank will fall apart. And if the bank fall apart, people will lose their money because the bankers' money safe. Your money will get tied up. Nobody protecting the people, and we keep voting these incompetent parties into government. None of them talking to you about this. Not one. PNM don't talk about this. UNC don't talk about this. And we need to talk about this because this is the well-being of the citizens. This is what we mean. Safeguarding the people against rogue banks plundering and pillaging our people's accounts. That is the function and purpose of government. The fact that Keith Rowley has as his ride or die the son of one of the banksters, Stuart Young, tells you everything you need to know. This country is not broken by accident. It is broken by design. Everything that is wrong in Trinidad and Tobago makes money for somebody else. National security has spent $17 billion in the last 2 years. For what? To do what? What have they done with it? Besides enriching finances. Healthcare in Trinidad and Tobago has cost this nation $50 billion in the last 10 years. For that madness that we get. It didn't build a Remo Hospital and Point Fortin Hospital. Those are being built with foreign money that we will be owing for forever. That $50 billion is just stolen outright. $1 billion covers assets, human resource, operation. The rest goes to some transfer that I don't understand yet. And we have to get into government to follow that money, to find out who is stealing it. Education cost us a similar figure. $50 billion in the last 10 years. 11,000 children every year do not graduate. For that $50 billion we spent for the last 10 years, we have 110,000 of our people walking around failed out of our education system for that money. We've never elected a government in this country that had as its purpose, its function and reason to safeguard and secure, protect the well-being of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And until you do that, you see, this is not about like, and there's a reason I speak the way I speak, because I want to get into your mind. I don't want to bullshit you. That's the media's job. That's the government's job. The politicians, that's what they do. The Chamber of Commerce is excellent at that. You've been plundered and pillaged by people who are smiling with you while they're doing it, and you smiling back. It's like you're getting robbed very pleasantly. Somebody said you could keep your money on you and risk getting robbed in the street, or you could put it in a bank and get robbed in air-conditioned comfort. And that is the absolute truth. In Trinidad and Tobago, nothing works. And nothing works so that others could get rich. We are a broken nation, broken by design, broken by the financiers and the owners, the unseen hands, the oligarchs that control and operate the PNM and the UNC. And you who play in eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Somebody posted on Facebook the other day, if Kamala is the solution, if Kamala is the answer, what the hell is the question? What is the question? We have $1 billion to pay back to China for a Cuba hospital. That money could have built 10 hospitals, regardless of how pretty you think it look. $100 million is a lot of money. We've spent $1 billion to China. We're in debt to China. So if China come and take the pitch lake and the nylon pool, what did you get for it? It's like when Columbus came and distracted the Indians with shiny baubles. They're left with the land. You've gotten baubles. We're still doing that shit. Cuba Hospital, Taruba, Napa Sapa Tapa, Scarborough Hospital, the waterfront, all of that we owe for to foreign people who could levy on Trinidad and Tobago and take everything we own. Everything of value, all of our crown jewels. They could take everything and leave us with the bullshit baubles we bought. And we laughing and we joking and we meansing and we cussing and we carrying on. The only thing that we are not doing is respecting ourselves, taking our democracy seriously and ourselves. We have no organization in this country, nowhere, that speaks of issues to the people. We have so much distracting nonsense bullshit passing as conversation that the people on the ground, I'm surprised that they believe anything that anybody says anymore. It takes a lot for me to come to you and tell you that everything could fix when your experience in this country should say to you, that's bullshit. Nothing has ever worked. Nothing could fix. There is no public office you've never interacted with that you could come away from it saying, that was first world, developed nation, professional. I felt like the public service served me. We don't get that. We get bullshit, archaic, antique, old, failed, broken by design. Put a government, I told somebody today, we could turn this entire country around in less than 5 years. We could have this economy bubbling, one of the richest nations in the world on cash flow, forget GDP, in less than 5 years. We could turn the education system around where by the end of 5 years, the children who go into Form 1 are first world. That the entire nation, all 20,000 of those children will be receiving for the first time. All 20,000 will be receiving for the first time a prestige education. Fatima St. Mary's, Bokorapo Tranquility, St. James, San Fernando, all of them. The same monitored, purposeful, first world education. That in less than 5 years, public health would become decentralized and everybody would be 5 minutes away from emergency response to the level of what I just told you. We don't want more hospitals, we need more healthcare centers. We have enough hospitals. We don't operate the hospitals we have. We need proper healthcare centers that operate as triage and ER, emergency rooms, casualty departments in every constituency 24/7 with attending doctors on call. You could go and get your food badge 9 o'clock in the night, 24 hours a day with emergency surgery suites that could stabilize and deal with most of the issues that affect people as a crisis, as a medical emergency. Less than 5 years, you could have that. We could decentralize, break up WASA and decentralize it into 41 processing, retention, distribution companies. So that if Sangre Grande don't have water, Mayaro could send water to Sangre Grande. We could have fixed this country 56 years ago. But Eric Williams didn't come into power to free the people. Eric Williams came into power to replace Massa. And every prime minister we've ever had since has been a different version of Massa. And that is Junior Massa, because them politicians foolish. They get in themselves rich and they interfere with people's children, but they're not thieving the real money. The real money is the people that you see driving around society in Range Rovers, Mercedes Benz and Ferraris that understand how to put politicians on a string and operate them to their own best interest. Politicians have become puppets in this country where other people are literally dictating what takes place in parliament, cabinet and government. Next time we talk, I'll explain to you what is cabinet and what it means and what it is supposed to be doing. Because the media says it like it is something sacred and sanctified. It's not. Cabinet is just the prime minister and a couple of ministers that he thinks loyal to him making decisions. That is all. It could be challenged. It should be challenged. We will get there in another conversation. More than anything, Trinidad and Tobago, more than anything, forget who you like and you don't like. It's not about that. What you need to be doing is looking to hire functional people to make your life better. If you get that, if you understand that the function, purpose, and reason for government is that you happy, you'll make better decisions. And if we could get there as a people, we could fix this entire country. Until we speak again, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.